It starts with good intentions, exhausted parents, overwhelmed mothers, a well-meaning grandparent or a best-selling parenting book, or a sleep trainer on the internet who says the same thing everyone seems to be saying. Let them cry. It builds independence. You are teaching them to self-soothe. If you keep picking them up every time they cry, they will never learn to calm themselves down. And so you do it. You close the door. You stand in the hallway. You watch the clock. You listen to the sound of your baby crying, and something inside you breaks a little, but you tell yourself it is for their own good. You tell yourself this is how they learn. You tell yourself that love sometimes means letting them struggle. But here is the question no one is asking. The question that changes everything. What if you are not teaching independence at all? What if you are teaching something much deeper? Something no parenting book warns you about? What if every time you let them cry alone, their brain is learning something about love that you never intended to teach? And what if the emotional damage of let them cry is not visible today or tomorrow, but 20 years from now, when that baby is an adult who cannot figure out why intimacy feels terrifying? This is not a story about bad parents. This is a story about bad advice. And what you are about to learn will challenge everything you have been told about crying, independence, and what babies actually need. Let us go back to the beginning, to the first cry. The very first moment a newborn opens their mouth and makes that sound. What is happening inside that tiny body? It is not manipulation. It is not attention-seeking. It is not trying to control you. It is survival. Your baby is born with a nervous system that is completely unfinished. They cannot regulate their own heart rate. They cannot calm their own stress response. They cannot lower their own cortisol. They need you to do it for them. And the cry is the only tool they have. When a baby cries, their body is flooded with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline. Their heart rate spikes. Their breathing becomes irregular. And here is the part most parents never realize. Their brain is watching to see what happens next. Does someone come? Does the world respond to my distress? Does the person keeping me safe notice that I am terrified? And this is where the science becomes emotional. Because what researchers have discovered about the let them cry approach is nothing short of heartbreaking. When a baby cries and no one comes, something happens inside their brain. Something that looks like calming down but is actually something entirely different. The baby stops crying. Finally, you think. They learn to self-soothe. But inside that tiny body, the stress hormones are still elevated. The heart rate is still high. The only thing that changed is that the baby stopped sending the signal. This is not self-regulation. This is resignation. The baby has learned that crying does not bring comfort, so they conserve their energy. They stop asking for help. But they are not calm. They are not independent. They have simply given up on being heard. And here's the part that keeps attachment researchers awake at night. This pattern, repeated over weeks and months, literally changes the architecture of the developing brain. The part of the brain responsible for emotional regulation, the orbitofrontal cortex, develops through co-regulation, not through being left alone, through being held, through being soothed, through a parent's nervous system teaching the baby's nervous system how to return to calm. When a baby is left to cry alone too often, that part of the brain does not develop the same way. The neural pathways for self-soothing do not magically appear. They are built through thousands of moments of being soothed by someone else. So here is the truth. The parenting industry does not want you to know. Independence is not taught through abandonment. Independence is built through security. A baby who knows someone will come when they cry is a baby who eventually feels safe enough to explore the world alone, not because they learned that crying is useless, because they learned that someone is always there if they need to come back. But let us go deeper. Because the emotional damage of let them cry is not just about brain development. It is about something even more fundamental, something researchers call attachment formation. The first 3 years of life are when your baby is building an internal map of what relationships look like. And the most important question their brain is asking is this: when I am in distress, what happens? If the answer is consistently that someone comes, someone holds, someone soothes, the baby builds what psychologists call secure attachment. The internal belief that love is reliable, that connection is safe, that other people can be trusted. But if the answer is that no one comes, or that coming is inconsistent, or that crying leads to being alone, the baby builds something else. Insecure attachment. the internal belief that love is unpredictable, that needing help is dangerous, that being alone is safer than reaching out. And here is where this becomes devastating. That internal map does not disappear when the baby grows up. It becomes the blueprint for every relationship they will ever have. Decades of research, thousands of studies, one consistent finding. The way you respond to your baby's cries predicts the way they will attach to romantic partners 25 years later. Let that sink in. The choice you make tonight in the hallway, listening to your baby cry, is shaping the way your child will love as an adult. If they learn that crying brings comfort, they learn that vulnerability is safe. If they learn that crying brings isolation, they learn that needing someone is dangerous. And they carry that lesson into their marriage, into their friendships, into the way they parent their own children. This is the hidden inheritance no one talks about. But here's the part that makes this even more fascinating and more painful. Because what most parents do not realize is that the let them cry approach is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the nervous system works. The idea came from research done decades ago, often misinterpreted, applied in ways the original researchers never intended, and the assumption was that babies need to learn to calm themselves down. But here is what we now know from neuroscience. Babies cannot calm themselves down, not because they are weak, because their brains literally lack the neural circuitry to do it. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control and emotional regulation, is not fully developed until the mid-20s. A baby left to cry alone is not learning to self-regulate. They are learning that no one is coming, and their nervous system adapts to that reality by shutting down the signal, not by finding calm, by giving up hope. And this goes much deeper than people think, because the effects do not show up immediately. They show up years later when that child starts school, when they cannot handle frustration, when they fall apart over small things, when they seem anxious or withdrawn or overly clingy. Everyone asks, what is wrong with this child? But the real question is, what happened to this child's nervous system when they were too young to remember? The body remembers. The nervous system remembers, even when the conscious mind has no memory at all. But do not let this become guilt, please, because guilt shuts down learning. Guilt makes us defensive, and you do not need guilt, you need information. The truth is that every parent has moments when they cannot respond. Every parent has nights when they are too exhausted, too overwhelmed, too touched out to be present. And that is not damage. That is being human. The damage does not come from missing a response. The damage comes from a consistent pattern of non-response, from a philosophy that tells parents to ignore their instincts, from a culture that values independence over connection and confuses emotional self-sufficiency with health. And here is the beautiful part. The part that changes everything. It is never too late to repair. The brain is not a block of stone. It is a living, changing organ. Neuroplasticity means that every moment of responsive care, every time you pick up your crying baby, every time you choose connection over convenience, you are building new neural pathways, not just in your baby's brain, in your own. If you have been using let them cry and something inside you is now feeling a knot in your stomach, take a breath. You did not know, and now you do. And knowing changes everything. Because here is what your baby actually needs. Not a perfect parent. Not someone who never misses a cry. Someone who comes back. Someone who repairs. Someone who holds them and says with their body, I hear you. I see you. You are not alone. That moment of return is more powerful than 1,000 moments of never leaving, because it teaches the most important lesson of all. Love can be trusted not because it never fails. Love can be trusted because even when it fails, it comes back. If you're the kind of parent who wants to understand what is actually happening inside your baby's emotional world, not just the surface behavior, but the deep, hidden, nervous system truth, this is exactly the kind of psychologically immersive content we explore here every week. Because parenting is not about following rules written by people who have never met your baby. It is about learning to trust your instincts, about understanding the science beneath the surface, about recognizing that your baby's cry is not an enemy to be silenced. It is a gift, a signal, a connection, the sound of a tiny human trusting you with their fear. And that trust is sacred. Let us take a moment here, because this is heavy, and you are allowed to feel whatever you are feeling. Grief for the nights you did not know, relief that you are learning now. anger at the advice that told you to ignore your gut. All of it is valid, all of it is welcome. The truth is that the let them cry approach became popular for a reason. It promised exhausted parents a solution. It promised sleep. It promised a baby who could handle being alone. And it worked on the surface. Babies do stop crying. But not for the reasons we hoped. They stop crying because their nervous system learned that crying is useless. They stop crying because the alternative is more pain than the pain of being alone. They stop crying because their brain chose survival over connection. And that is not independence. That is heartbreak wearing a mask. But here's what no one tells you. The same brain that learned to stop crying can learn to cry again. Not because you want a baby who cries more, because you want a baby who knows that when they cry, someone will come, and that takes time. It takes patience. It takes thousands of small moments of showing up when you are tired, when you are overwhelmed, when every part of you wants to walk away. But you stay. You hold. You breathe. You let your calm become their calm. And slowly, silently, miraculously, their nervous system begins to trust again. They learn that connection is safe. That needing help is not dangerous. That love is not something they have to earn by being quiet. And one day, that baby will be an adult. And they will face something terrifying. And somewhere deep in their body, they will hear a whisper, not a memory, a feeling, a knowing. The sound of someone who came when they cried. The felt sense that they are not alone in the dark. That is your legacy. Not the nights you got it right. The nights you came back when you got it wrong. The moments you chose, connection over convenience. The breath you took before you opened the door and picked them up one more time. Your baby is not trying to manipulate you. They are not trying to control you. They are trying to survive. And they chose you to be the one who keeps them safe. So hold them. Hold them when they cry. Hold them when they do not. Hold them when you are tired. Hold them when the world tells you to put them down. Because one day, they will not need you to hold them anymore. And on that day, you will miss the weight of them in your arms. You will miss the sound of their cry. You will miss being the person they trusted with their fear. So hold them now, while you can. While they still believe that when they cry, someone will come. Be that someone, every time you can. And when you cannot, come back, come back, come back. That is enough. That is everything. That is love.